If you retire at 65 and live to be 85, you only have roughly about 1,000 weeks left. But here's the part that most people don't stop to actually think about. It's that you really maybe only have about half of that time, around 500 weeks or so, of your health, your energy, and your mobility to really go and do the things that you've been looking forward to your whole life, your whole career. Those early years of retirement, what people often call the go-go years, are incredibly valuable, and how you use them often determines whether retirement feels deeply fulfilling or if it quietly over time becomes disappointing. If we haven't gotten to meet yet, my name is Dylan Martin, certified financial planner with Stewardship Investments. My team and I have spent many years helping families think through retirement, and not just financially, but with intentionality. And what I want to share here today doesn't necessarily come from theory. It comes from my team walking alongside people who are 10 and 20 years into retirement. Some of these ideas may challenge you how you've been thinking about retirement, and others may simply confirm what you've already been sensing. But all of these thoughts are lessons learned from actual people who have lived it, including the regrets. So I'll start here by talking about money, and that makes sense, right? I'm a financial advisor. But I'm not wanting to talk about balances, rates of return. One of the most important mindset shifts in retirement is understanding that money is really about time. It's really about freedom. Money is a tool. It's about having the ability to choose how you spend your days rather than letting circumstances or fear dictate how you live. And here's the tension that I typically see. Some retirees are so focused on not running out of money that they unintentionally trade away experiences during their healthiest years. And I can say that myself or the other advisors on my team, we've never sat across from someone who is in their late 80s who has said, I wish I had skipped having those experiences with my family so I could have left a bigger account balance to them, so I could have left them a bigger legacy in dollar figures. You just can't buy back time, and you can't buy back memories that you never created. And I've never met someone who regretted making memories with the people that they love. Another thing I want to talk about is compound interest. And I'm not talking about compound interest in the sense of portfolio returns. I'm talking about in the sense of your life. So buying things tend to depreciate, but experience tend to appreciate. They tend to have a compound interest like return on your life. Emotionally, relationally, when people look back later in life, it's rarely the purchases that tend to stand out. It's the trips, it's the shared experiences, it's the memories with family and friends that are a rich part of what they look back on fondly. And so with that, a helpful question to ask yourself, when you're 90, what will matter more? The extra money left behind or the experiences that you were able to enjoy and share? And it isn't about spending irresponsibly on experiences, on building memories. It's just about aligning money with what actually lasts and what you actually really want. And so when you transition into retirement, it's not time that you now lack. You have plenty of time not having to get in your car, drive downtown, go to work in the office. But what tends to be a struggle for people, and I'm sure you're feeling this, is a lack of energy. You can have a completely open calendar, but if you're mentally and emotionally, physically drained, it doesn't translate into a meaningful life because you can't capitalize on that time. So one of the healthiest and most helpful things that you can be doing is to be designing your day around energy, not just around when you are available from a time perspective. So you want to pay attention to what activities really do give you life, which relationships you have in your life energize you, what consistently drains you, and you want to organize those things so you're optimizing for how much energy you have to bring to the equation at that time. And then as much as possible, you want to structure your weeks accordingly so that that compounding effect can take effect and translate into an overarching fulfilling life where you're taking advantage of the energy that you have. A really comment I hear from people like you in retirement is that they say, I can't believe that time is going so fast. Well, there's actually a reason for that. Is when life becomes routine, time feels like it is accelerating. It feels like you're hitting the fast forward button in a sense. And a way to combat that is actually through introducing new experiences into your life. New experiences tend to slow things down, and I don't want to hear it that old dogs can't learn new tricks, because I know that they can. I know that you guys can do it. There's so much out there to be learning and to be growing in. So it's helpful to just be looking for new things to be engaging with that engage a different part of your brain. Things like, I have a family friend, she's in her 60s, recently retired, and she is wanting to learn to juggle. You can be looking to serve in new ways. You have new time, you're structuring your day around when you have that energy. So maybe you're finding new ways to go volunteer, to go serve, to go still utilize your skill set. You're a very skilled and talented individual. So now finding a new way to apply that. Maybe it's visiting new places, those places on the bucket list that you've always wanted to go see that are really interesting to you. And maybe even looking to explore new creative outlets that you have put off. Maybe you've been really interested in painting or in woodworking or any other area like that, but just haven't had the time, and now you do. I often hear, and I find this in my own life, that new experiences tend to make life feel fuller, not necessarily busier. And here's one thing that we are hearing that retirees consistently underestimate, and it's that relationships matter much more than anything else. I once heard a great quote from Andy Crouch, who's a speaker, author, honestly does a variety of amazing things. Go look into his work. But he once said that relationships are the currency of heaven. And I love that framework of how rich and how valuable relationships are. And with that, for the here and now, it's maybe helpful for you to be thinking of relationships sort of like a bank account. So things like encouragement, being present, being curious, showing interest in others is sort of like making a deposit. Whereas criticism, neglect, those are withdrawals, and they cost the relationship. And now that you're in this new season of retirement, retirement often gives you more margin for relationships, but it still requires a lot of intentionality. And you don't want to overlook what researchers call the weak ties in your life. So relationships like neighbors or acquaintances, people you see regularly, but you don't often deeply know. Maybe those are people you see at your favorite coffee shop that you go to on a regular basis. And they often can become meaningful connections later in life and keep you engaged with the broader community. So those are the types of relationships that you also want to be intentional about pouring into, in addition to the friends and family members that you have cultivated relationships leading up to now. I say all the time in my work with my clients and on this channel that retirement is a special season. It is very meaningful, but it isn't just meaningful because work stops. Your retirement has to be designed, has to be cultivated. And there are 3 principles here that I think can help you in that designing process. The first one is testing before you choose to commit, whether it's a move, a routine, a new commitment. Just try it before you really commit on locking it in. Treat it sort of as an experiment where it's okay if there is a success or a failure, because there isn't really a success or failure. You're just trying something new. And again, this goes back to being willing to try new things, spices up life a bit, and there's just many benefits there. And the second principle here is to define success for yourself. And I know I just said with testing before committing that you want to not be looking at success versus failure, and I think that is true when you are looking to be experimenting with new things, but you still do want to be defining overarchingly what you want success to look like for yourself. I mean, another way to say this is just setting goals for yourself. And why I think this is important to define this for yourself is because I've seen this often in retirees' lives. If you don't define it for yourself, you're going to utilize someone else's vision, someone else's thoughts, and adapt that to your own life. And that isn't always bad, but I find it to be much more helpful and meaningful and effective if you're the one defining that goal and defining that vision. And the last principle here is just to review regularly, just to check in with yourself. Small course corrections over time, monthly or quarterly, just prevent years of quiet regret. Again, this is another place where compound interest applies. What seems like a small tilt off course over time starts to go more and more and more and more off the beaten path. And this is another area where compound interest can make a big effect. Let's say you're flying out of California and you're wanting to fly through Florida. You go a couple degrees to the north, you end up in New York, but either way, you are flying through Nevada. So in the short term, those small course corrections or small course tilts may not feel like much, but having these regular check-ins prevents you from ending up in New York when maybe you're wanting to end up in Florida. And to wrap up here, what I've been talking through in this video, retirement isn't just about being financially secure. Yes, you do need to be financially secure and able to have a successful retirement, but it's not all about that. That is just the means to the end. It's not the end in and of itself. Retirement is overarchingly just about being intentional with the season that you've been given here and continuing to live a fulfilling life. You've worked hard for this chapter, and the goal goal isn't for it to be perfect. It can't be perfect, but you just want to make sure that it is aligned with what your goals are, with who you are, with what your vision is. If one of these ideas has stood out to you, or if you disagree in any way, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. Make sure to leave it below in the comments. And if this was helpful for you, please consider subscribing and liking this video so that you can stay up to date with more videos like this one, and so that others like you can find this content as well. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.